came out the womb and they said, "I think he's ready."
I came early. We're not recording, are we?
We're live now. We're live now.
Okay. I came out the womb a long time ago. I'll just go ahead and finish that conversation. I'll leave it like it is. I didn't look like I look now, but it's been a minute.
There weren't any cords around you, right?
I don't know.
The cord that was on the stomach.
I was born during the days of midwifery. There were no hospitals and doctors out in the hinterlands of Virginia.
Wow.
So I was born at home.
Lucky you. That's good.
Well, I was home. I stayed home, but mom went to the hospital.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
I follow.
Wow. So hey.
Yeah. Wow.
So I was the last one, and let me just say that I be the last.
The last and final. It's your so.
That's why I'm so grateful.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Okay.
So there are some people who are looking at this or maybe who read this post, and maybe they're not so grateful, right? But you say they should be grateful, right?
Yeah.
They should be grateful. There's nothing wrong.
Here's why. I think we here in America have become spoiled, or we are ungrateful in our great time of wealth. And I say that because, again, I can only reflect on where I've been and what I've done to help me to appreciate the good, the bad, and the ugly of American society. I fought in Vietnam. I was there for a year. I lived with the Vietnamese. We lived in a little hamlet in a little village in the middle of nowhere. I may have had maybe 10 hot showers in a year.
Man, that had to smell great.
I was in Iran, and again, seeing people on the streets that had nothing. I saw people that would go to a little thing called a jube. That was their water system. And they would dip or get water out of this jube. And 10 feet away, a dog was drinking. 30 feet away, you would find sheep and goats in the jube drinking. And they didn't have good sanitation. I was in England. It was a little bit different, but there wasn't a lot of stuff. It's modern, but it wasn't a lot of stuff. I was in Germany, same thing. I spent time in Korea, same thing. Spent time in Panama, same thing. Visited Japan, same thing. Point I'm making is every country, every society has its challenges. And there is nothing perfect about any of them. And that's why I like the idea. And unfortunately, we find too many people in America who want to hide behind a particular passage in the Bible or a line or a paragraph in the Constitution, and that's their be all, their end all. And to me, we have a tendency to take stuff out of context. So this capital gains, it's for people who have enormous wealth. And the plan is not to take anything away from them. It's to help those to whom much is given, much is required.
When you say enormous wealth, for anyone who's listening, help them understand by what you mean by enormous wealth.
Enormous wealth, I'm talking about the mega millionaires and the mega billionaires. I'm not talking about people who are making 100,000, 200,000, 400,000. No. I'm talking about the people who are making millions of dollars and have millions and billions of wealth.
Mm.
Okay. And they talk about the human aspects, and some of them are doing stuff and you don't know about it. But there are some who become somewhat stingy and greedy because they've made it. It's as if they feel that they made it, so something's wrong with you because you haven't made it. But I also recognize the fact that there are certain hurdles, pitfalls, valleys, mountains, streams, rivers that we have to contend with, and some are natural or nature made, and some are man made.
Mm.
And I think the ones that give me the hot burn are those that are man made, but the man who made them make us feel that we are less than, that woe is me, that I should be like them. However, the hurdles that they have created make it impossible because they had a road to run on. They had connections. They are affluent, and for those who are not affluent, they still have access, not necessarily ability. They have access, and because of the access, they are perceived as better than. So it doesn't matter whether, and we were talking earlier about Bill Gates, and I have nothing against Bill Gates. I felt that he and his wife did a lot for humanity in creating at the time, I think it was like a 20 to $30 billion fund foundation years ago, and got the likes of Buffett to join forces and do some stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember when President Obama was president, and there was some talk about the US economy, and there was some discussion about that the government created or the people created. Basically, we're talking about the infrastructure.
Okay.
And there was a whole bunch of hatred that said, no, that corporate America, that big business created everything. And I would venture to say that if we didn't have rails and planes and trains and highways and bridges, these companies that call themselves building and creating a lot of stuff couldn't get it from point A to point B without infrastructure.
I can see, but I see both arguments. I see both
Well,
arguments.
okay, help me with that.
No, well, I can see someone who could be hyper focused or a nitpicker of details and say, oh well, you know, Carnegie created the railroads, or the Wright brothers created the airplane. But I also see what you're saying. You're talking more about not just an isolation of something, but being able to take it across the entire country. For example, highways, right? Or for example, the light rail and so forth. And in other countries, you mentioned Japan earlier, um, they do have really they have higher taxes, and those taxes a lot of times are paying for a lot of times. All right,
Mhm.
I can't say what everything's being paid for, but a lot of times they are paying for infrastructure, and in many of the cases.
Well,
So
let's think about it, because there is some connective tissue in all of this. at some place, at some point, you're still going to need manpower. So needing manpower, because you can have all of the robotics and artificial intelligence in the world, but in those factories, there is still manpower.
Hmm.
So just because automation has entered into the equation, does it mean that the person who's pushing the buttons, that he or she should be now diminished, reduced to $7.35 an hour, receive less than a living wage?
Hmm.
It's and that's the piece. It's not so much that people want others to give them something. It's not that anyone feels entitled. I remember my first job, I made 50 cents an hour. And people say, 50 cents? Well,
It's big money right there.
so some of my friends were making 35 cents an hour. So I thought I was doing okay. So when I went to $1 an hour, I'm going like, whoa. Now, granted, that was a couple moons ago, but $35, $33, $7.35 today,
Hmm.
trying to live in a house or an apartment, a family married with two kids, trying to have a car, trying to have some of the modern conveniences. You know, there's no way to do it on $3. I mean, on $7.35 an hour, working 40 hours a week.
But with that being so let's say that's minimum wage, right? I think maybe in Georgia it's less than that, right? Like
Well,
5.25.
yeah, well,
So
but it and then we find those sanctimonious individuals who say that people are lazy.
well, hold on. What I was going to ask was or is whose job is it to actually increase the minimum wage?
Well, I would think that the employers would try to give um, a decent wage for the work that's being performed. But there's
That
this, I said try, but there's a certain amount of artificialness in it. And the federal government stepped in because there were countries and individuals not paying, they were paying people slave wages, okay, in a supposedly modern industrialized society. In fact, I saw something the other day that this man has a restaurant, and he had someone work for him for 4 or 5 years, and didn't pay him anything. He was sort of like, it was actually slave labor, was found out. And I think the man who was the modern day slave owner is being asked to pay like $500,000 to this man that he had basically kept in captivity and forced him to work.
what?
You weren't aware?
I hate to say that I'm not informed on that. I mean,
Well,
that sounds crazy.
let's think about it
So
again.
what so he had him captured. I'm sorry, Hank. I know I'm
Yeah,
cutting you off, but
he had him had demanded that he work, didn't pay him anything.
mm. So wow. So earlier when I said, whose job is it to make the wage? I was asking that because if we increase the wage to let's say $15 an hour across the board, for example,
Mhm.
we're going to have issues that will probably hurt the economy. And here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
If I know if we're all paying if we're on a baseline at $15 an hour,
Mhm.
just as an example, when someone goes to get their local drink from whatever, the consumer is used to paying let's say $2 for that drink. Now, because of the input cost and the cost of that operation, and they have employees now, and maybe that cost has increased for the employees because of the wage. That $2 drink could now be $4, right?
I'll stop drinking drinks, but go ahead.
So that will have a ripple effect across many businesses. Like right now, I've noticed that when I call my cell phone company to pay the bill, right? And I'll pay it on, I'll either pay it on the app or I'll call in. I've noticed that I am speaking to oftentimes I'm speaking to a representative that is not in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I'm like, gee, Willikers, here's a multi-billion-dollar company
Mm-hmm.
that has outsourced this to a call center overseas.
But why?
All
Why?
because they
Uh-huh.
wanted to lower their cost,
Uh-huh.
right, of operations.
And
So, and here's my
but
thing.
where are they?
Well, I don't know. They could be in the Philippines. They could be in
No,
Cambodia. I mean, where's the
where
company?
is where's the home? Yeah, where's the home? Where's the home?
California,
Okay.
Cali.
All right.
Yeah. And so either California or New York, whatever, or Verizon or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Right? So
how is the company able? I'm sorry. How is that company able to hire someone in Timbuktu
okay,
to provide that particular service rather than hiring someone in
technology,
California or Chicago or what have you to
technology,
yeah.
technology.
Is
But
this live?
yeah, it's live, and these are comments on the right hand side from people.
Oh, okay. Well,
Technology.
well,
But
okay. So here it is. Technology. In technology, part of it is the infrastructure, right?
sure, yes, we can say that.
So
Absolutely.
if those companies didn't have the ability to locate certain aspects of their enterprise, quote, offshore, they would have to pay for it where? So under the guise of trade agreements or what have you, we keep trying to level the playing field. And in doing that, there's a price. There's a
price. I'm with you. But the issue,
cost
issue
because the
is,
individuals now don't have jobs.
and that's the thing. If you have a company similar to what we just talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think to yourself, okay, I can hire 4 people, or let's say I can hire 3 people to work 3 different shifts, and that can
Mm-hmm.
cover 24 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or for the price of a half of a person, right? I can
Mm-hmm.
take that same business and put it overseas, that same
Okay.
operation and put it
Okay.
overseas. I would not be surprised if more businesses started doing that. And if or when they
Mm-hmm.
begin to do that,
Okay.
we're going to have more people unemployed.
Well, look, I understand the profit motive of a business owner, but I also understand that there are lots of different jobs that are interconnected to the operations of an enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we were looking at this whole idea of infrastructure. There's a cause and an effect. Like we were talking the other day about the pandemic and the moratorium that's placed on evictions. And now judges are saying, well, hey, states can't do that.
Yeah, that's
But
gonna be an
now
issue.
you've got potentially hundreds of thousands of people who, through no fault of their own, stand on the precipice of eviction.
Could be millions. It's probably millions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the crazy thing about it is now they are evicted. Now, the property owners, they're not going to have other people to just step in and fill those 800 units of apartments or all of the houses.
And okay, yes. So I love
Okay.
that. I'm
So
with you. I'm with you on that.
they're going to lose revenue.
Revenue.
Eventually, the owners who are trying to kick everybody out are going to go into this word called
Closure. Now or pre-foreclosure.
So now there's a ripple effect. So how do
and that's the thing.
Mhm.
if so we can agree that there will be a ripple effect if they in fact do evict people, um, before the end of this year, without having an adequate plan in place for how to receive these people. There will be a ripple effect, and everything you're saying makes perfect sense to you and I, and
Mhm.
hopefully there's someone who is listening to this, because if or when they evict those people, that
Mhm.
person is going to have an eviction on their record. They may even have a judgment against their credit.
Mhm.
And as that person who is now evicted tries to go and find tries to find housing
No, a
somewhere
job.
else, or
A
and
a
or a
job.
job,
That's
and then they
right.
have to then someone runs their credit, right, to qualify them for this job or background check, whatever, for this job, or for the new housing, and they
Right.
see that they have not only an eviction, but they also have missed payments from whatever else, credit cards, or even um, a judgment. They're not going to get
Mhm.
that job. They're not going to get that house.
But
So so now we understand that has a ripple effect, and that can
okay.
increase more homeless, right? Yes.
Yes.
So we agree with that. Don't you think that increasing the minimum wage it will also have a ripple effect with more unemployment?
Let me ask you this. You are now a person, you are making $7.35 an hour, $8, you're making $10 an hour, you're married with two children, and you can't afford a house, and you can't make ends meet right now. Okay?
Hmm.
How do you feel? When you are doing everything that you possibly can to get ahead, and you're not able to do it under circumstances. You can't afford to go to another city or another town.
Hmm.
You can't even afford to move.
Hmm.
So now you are, in my opinion, you're sort of trapped.
We
So
are.
I say all of that to say, as I looked at this talks about the capital gains, but I think the capital gains that the administration is looking at goes beyond capital gains. It ties in my opinion, it ties into infrastructure, which is a bigger issue. And when we start to look at the bits and pieces of the infrastructure plan that that's that or the infrastructure bill that's being planned, it's going to take a new definition of infrastructure. Now, technically, it's not a new definition of infrastructure. It's the idea that if somebody wants to find fault in a definition of something or the
Hmm.
meaning of something, it's easy to do. Okay? But if you had a sick mom or a sick dad that lived on their own and they could no longer live on their own, and they don't have the means, the financial means to hire support,
Hmm.
and they are thrust into, for the lack of a better term, they become wards of the state,
Hmm.
then how the, their care is not going to be cheap. But if
Hmm.
they don't get care, they can't move in with you and your family because you only got a two-bedroom.
Hmm.
I'm saying these are
I'm
the these are
I'm with
some of
you. I'm with you. I get what you're saying, but the only thing is, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. If you increase the minimum wage,
Mhm,
the person you're talking about that they had to hire for, so and so to work or to help them live, right?
mhm.
For services. Well, their services go up too. Their services go up. That cost goes up. And now, if anything, so okay, if minimum wage is $7, and
Mhm,
if you double it, then
mhm,
ultimately what's going to happen is that for many products and services,
mhm.
those services will have to be doubled as well to still have that same profit margin,
Well,
because
not necessarily, and I understand that there's a symbiotic relationship in certain things that happen. But I think we have to start to look at everything in terms of dollars and cents.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
There's a certain cost benefit that I think enters this. And I was looking at a comment, someone was talking about socialism or capitalistic socialism. And the question that I would ask that individual is, describe or explain, define socialism to me in its purest terms. And I say
Ooh,
that only because the US has had socialistic programs
50
at
years
least
maybe.
in my 70 plus years, and we didn't call them socialists then. So I say that to say we have to be careful not to become cliche-ish in trying to explain the woes of society, and two, the fixes that are necessary to make society better. You and I live here in Indianapolis, Indiana, correct?
Unfortunately, yes.
Now, is there mass transit
No.
in, I'm sorry, wait, I didn't finish the question.
Okay.
Is there mass transit into or close to most neighborhoods in Indianapolis, Indiana?
No. Well, I'm sorry, Hank. What do you consider to be mass transit? 'Cause I
I'm
know some
talking about
people.
a bus service or train service or those types of things.
There's a bus that limps by every now and again. Yes.
Yeah, but they don't go across the city. So the thing is that on 735 or $10 an hour, I cannot afford a car. But if there was mass transit, a bus service, I could get back and forth to work.
Perfect. I love that.
But because there's no bus service, I am now forced to live in areas close to the bus route, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In most of those areas that are close to the bus route, you wouldn't want your mom and daddy to live in.
That's correct.
So we are constantly forcing people to live in substandard conditions with substandard services, and then we expect them to make something out of their lives.
Okay. Perfect. I love that perspective. So I'm going to say this: not everyone can afford a car, just like you mentioned.
Correct.
Cities such as Indianapolis. This is why I laughed earlier when you mentioned the bus system. Cities like Indianapolis don't have adequate enough. They're not. The city planning is so out of whack that it's not easy accessible. Okay, we'll say that.
But that's a deliberate process.
And I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I think a lot of that stuff is deliberate here. So with that being said, so since everyone cannot afford a car, the city themselves does not give everyone um, monetary means to purchase a new car, but they do give everyone at least somewhat access to a bus to make
But
it.
what do you want?
But I know what they want, a car, right? Or they
Okay.
want to get
Okay.
from
Now,
place
how
A
do
to
I
place
get a
B.
car?
But hold on. But that's the thing. They didn't give them a car.
I know,
They
but
just
how do I
gave
get
them
a car?
someone access to transportation. But here's my thing with the minimum wage.
Mhm.
Knowing that supposedly everyone wants their minimum wage to be at a certain level, they didn't give that to everyone. I believe there are other incentives that you can possibly give to people that then
Mhm.
they can make that choice if they're going to increase their wage. Just as an example, this is just as an example. If everyone was given the opportunity to have a certain login to create some type of business and that would be successful,
Mhm.
that would also, I don't know, give them the wage of $20 an hour,
Mhm.
and you give that as an option to people, then
Mhm.
that's okay. But I don't think you should just give it to people because you don't know. It's not everyone's going to use it. Just like if we make education, if we make the
Who should be
universities free,
punished? Who?
but we're not punishing anybody. We're not
But it's
punishing
perceived, but
anybody.
it's perceived as punishment.
It's not punishment. It's not punishment. If if I choose to eat pizza, okay, every day for lunch,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden I can't fit my clothes, and I blame it on the pandemic. Okay, that's a choice. And granted,
Uh-huh.
does it cost more if, instead of me going downstairs right to the deli and getting a slice of pizza, I could
Mhm.
easily like today get this thing, whatever that was, that yogurt thing. The yogurt thing costs more. Here's what I'm getting at. The yogurt thing
And
costs
it's
more,
and it's healthier, but go
and
ahead.
it's better for me. The
Right.
pizza feels good to me.
Mhm.
It's not the best choice,
Okay.
but it's also cheaper.
Okay.
So there's no punishment there. It's only choice.
All right. I hear you. Here's here's where I am. I have driven the streets of many major cities, but here in Indianapolis, I can remember a few years ago, I was driving on Post Road. It was raining. I was driving in the outside lane. There was a puddle. I hit the puddle, and $500 later, I was on the move again.
Hmm.
There was a almost 3 foot hole that was disguised by the water. Now, I don't remember exactly. It's been about 10 years ago that the politicians felt that people were being taxed too much in Indianapolis. So they reduced income taxes, property taxes, which had a ripple effect. It have started to affect the schools, it affected the roads, it affected the bridges, it did other things. And the governor um, signed a contract to put some of the highway systems and privatized them. And the city or the state got like $1 billion or what have you for
Hmm.
100 years. And this company is supposed to maintain the roads. And then the city privatized the parking meters downtown.
Hmm.
Because okay. And I'm saying all of those might be good on one side, but the streets and roads are are terrible.
Hmm.
And if you hit a pothole
Hmm.
and you blow a tire or 2 tires, or you've got damage to your car, you can contact the city,
Good luck.
but they say, well, you need to contact your insurance company. Now, I'm fortunate, I carry $100 deductible. Most people carry $500 or $1,000 deductible. And each year, the roads are still bad.
So the question is this,
I would
or
pay a few extra dollars each year in taxes to have nice, smooth roads to drive on.
but they've already sold the roads, right? The roads no longer
But
belong
they
to the
still
people.
have a responsibility.
There's no so okay. I don't think people should be penalized. I'm not saying penalized. I would just say give incentives. Here's what I mean by an incentive. For companies that to hire choose to have a floor at $15 an hour,
Mhm,
and let's say they hire 10 or 20 people, right?
mhm,
Or let's say they don't change the amount of people that's on their workforce,
mhm.
then because they're doing that, then the government should give them an incentive.
But
Because
see,
if you force everyone to have $15 an hour on as a minimum wage, they're going to fire people. They're going to cut costs, and you're going to have
but
a bigger issue with unemployment.
but sir, they're doing that now at 7:35. I've got friends that work for FedEx, and I think they work like 6 hours a night or 6 hours a day. Why do you think that is? Is it to give more people jobs?
Mm-mm.
Why do you think that is?
Lower costs instead of 8 hours
Well, so you don't have to get there's
full time.
there's that infamous B word. It's called benefits.
Hmm.
Okay, but they can hire 6 people 6 hours each per day. So they still got the same number of man hours. But those 6 people will cost less than 4 people working full time in absolute dollars. So none of the 6 basically is making enough. So they got to go out and find another job. So as a $10 an hour person, when they go and find another $10 job, what happens to their lifestyle?
It goes down.
Or their tax implications.
Yeah. They get hit more. Yeah, they start paying more in taxes.
So we go to these folk who make billions or hundreds of millions and will continue to make hundreds of millions. The only thing that they will do if they paid $1 million in taxes or $10 million in taxes is they'll have 10 million left. Is it going to change their lifestyle?
It could.
No. Come on, let's be realistic. If these guys, if these guys are, if you make if worth $130 billion, and you had to pay $1 billion in taxes,
they're not even going to have enough people to pay that amount in taxes. The reason being is
individuals, right? That'll take a lot of people to pay $1 billion in taxes.
No, I'm talking. No, you're mentioning like the ultra high net worth people. Mm-hmm. Those guys are not going to pay the 42, 43. They're probably not even pay 20% in taxes because they're going to have it shielded in different entities.
That's right. They've learned how to game the system.
But check this out. Do you remember? Do you remember when, I don't know if it was last year, this year, whatever? I remember hearing rumors of, I think it was last year, that our current president was looking to add the $15 an hour thing, but only for companies that had over 20 employees, right? You recall that part?
I don't know if it was 20 or 50, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, 20, 50, okay. Mm-hmm. So let's just look at the local Burger King, for example, and let's say they have 50 employees. Mm-hmm. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, "Oh my gosh, well, we're at that threshold. Let's go ahead and fire 2 more people to be safe."
But what are they doing now, even without that mandate? They've automated and reduced the number of people because everything's got a kiosk.
And that's why I'm saying at least give them incentives. That's all I'm saying. Give them incentives.
Who, the businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but they may already be getting incentives.
May have to give them more because even with a child, you have more than one child. You may have one child that will listen or heed, based off of a hug and a kiss. And another one you may have to threaten with punishment.
Here's a piece that gets me. These major corporations move into a state, they get incentives from the state, they get incentives for this, that, and the other. They pay decent wages, even with all of the incentives. Then what they do is they game the system so that they don't have to pay any taxes.
But period, who would pay? Technically, who would pay the tax? Who would pay the bulk of the taxes anyway? The employees. That's why when they get their W-2, or whatever they're using,
I'm talking about the company profit right there.
No, the employee. Because even
employees are already being taxed.
That's what I'm saying. Even with their checks,
I'm already being taxed. But even after I'm taxed, you paid me. Mm-hmm. I'm paying my taxes. Mm-hmm. You're paying your portion of whatever the employee taxes are, or the employer taxes.
Yeah, the withholding.
But aside from that, your net profit under rules that you should pay a portion of a percent of taxes on your net profit. Right. But these guys have found a way to get around paying anything.
Bonuses.
Yeah.
Because that's still part of I can still be an employee compensation, bonuses, and so it lowers your net profit. But my
But it,
thing is,
mhm.
the employees, because of tax withholdings, they would still pay the majority of taxes. Period. A doctor who works for a hospital, who
Yes.
works for a network, okay, a hospital network, that
Mhm.
network pays that doctor, that physician.
Mhm.
That physician, let's say, earns $500,000 a year. That physician is taxed 40, 50, 60% of their income,
Mhm.
but about 30% of that income is being withheld by that network, that hospital, whatever else, whoever else is administrating them or paying them.
Wait a minute. Run
So
that by me. Run that by me again.
whenever someone has a W-2, all right,
Mhm.
they get their paycheck, and you
Mhm.
have all these different things. You have FICA that comes out, you have Social
Medicare
Security,
and yeah,
Medicare,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And then you have
Okay.
something that's called withholdings.
Yes.
Well,
That's
that
what the withhold.
withholdings is being
Mhm.
held by the company that paid that person.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
all that would happen is that more than likely it's going to squeeze that withholding.
But again, if my W-2 says that I was paid $250,000,
Yes.
and it's going to itemize the taxes that I paid and the net income that I get out of this. Same thing happens on the books of the company. They show that as an employee expense,
Hmm.
okay? And at the end, when they take care of all of their other expenses at the bottom, and then they have net profit,
Yes.
okay? I'm saying that even though they've taken care of all of the employee taxes and employer taxes and all that other stuff, technically they still have a federal tax liability
Okay.
that many of them are not paying, or if they are paying anything at all, it's a reduced rate because they've learned to game the system.
And is that wrong?
Depends on what side of the fence you're on. From where I sit, I say yes.
If so, for example, your company, it all shakes out that the net profit for that year is going to be 20 million, and
Yes.
it's October of 2021,
Hmm.
and your CPA was preparing your tax, and they said, hey, listen, Hank, you guys are going to have to pay 50% of that net profit in taxes.
Hmm.
You're telling me that the answer should be, how soon can I send it? Whereas if someone else says, well, hey, CPA, before we go ahead and pay these taxes, is it okay if we actually go ahead and buy another restaurant or another building, and that would actually lower our taxes to less or none?
Let me ask a question. Which is more important to you, your ethics or your integrity?
So
Nah, you got to choose one.
I can't choose. I can't choose.
Um, some time ago, I was reading an article from John Maxwell, who's the leadership guru, and he said he was flying across the country on a plane, and a big time business leader struck up a conversation with him because he recognized him and was carrying on a conversation. And this guy asked John, what is your definition of business ethics?
Hmm.
And John said he looked at him somewhat perplexed and said, business ethics? He said, um, ethics is ethics. Okay. I say that because these companies have a culture, which I understand, profit motive,
Hmm.
but I think they sit around drinking martinis and smoking cigars and they learn tricks of the trade to not do what's right.
What do you mean by right? Is
Ethics is ethics. Because
ethics is ethics?
okay. My son, when he was younger and we would ride around and I'd turn off the radio and we'd be talking. And we were talking about laws versus right and wrong.
Okay.
And we would talk about a particular law, and he said, "Dad, that's not right." I said, "I know, son, it's not right." I said, "But it's the law."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "But Dad, that doesn't make any sense." I said, "I know, son, it doesn't make any sense, but it's the law." And he said, "Well, Dad, why doesn't someone change the law?" I said, "Well, we've tried, but unfortunately, the individuals who make the laws also make the rules
Mm-hmm.
that we must follow. So it has nothing to do with right or wrong. It has to do with the law." Okay. So
So
these laws are being written a lot by the lobbyists of a lot of these major corporations, and they find a loophole in the law.
uh-oh, Hank signed off real quick. I agree with that. However, here we go.
What?
You're back. So they find a loophole in the law.
Yeah, they find a loophole in the law, and then they spread the word to all of their frat brothers and church going members. Okay. And everybody now starts to manipulate the system by using whatever that loophole is. Now, that loophole is legal
It's legal.
because it's written in the law, but is it right? So now we try to close the loophole and everybody's getting all upset.
So the question is this:
Okay.
there's nothing. There's nothing. It's not immoral. Well, at least I'll say it this way. I don't see anything moral that comes from paying taxes.
Moral or immoral? Let me make sure.
I don't see anything moral from it. Only because I know that the government, our government at least,
Mhm,
receives money from a Federal Reserve. I could see if there was a I could see if we were in a vacuum, not even vacuum, if we were in a closed circuit economy
mhm,
where money or currency truly did flow like a current or water and it had to circulate. But it doesn't. The money is being produced and blown out or distributed through banks. I could see if you earn money
mhm,
and then as an act of reciprocity,
mhm,
you then release it back, right? Like
mhm,
when you go fishing, you catch one, right?
mhm,
Catch another one, and you eat one, and you throw one back,
mhm.
for the next day or for the
For
next
the
time
next day.
you're out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah.
But in this pool that we're fishing in, the fish, which is the money, is being replicated with no law of reciprocity
Yeah.
whatsoever.
But but let you talked about a bank, and I just remembered. Um, banking institutions are interesting things now. For the most part, the only thing they do is lend money. They make a lot of money, but they lend money.
Mhm.
So, how much interest do you think you would get if you had 100,000 cash in the bank? You call it what kind of currency? Fiat.
Fiat,
Okay. How much interest do you think you would get on that $100,000 if you left it in the bank for the year?
point zero one, 0.01%.
0.001, which is basically nothing.
Yeah.
So the bank is sitting on your money, okay, just safeguarding it. So in essence, you're paying the bank to safeguard your money. And I think the system is driving us to not have savings accounts because they are not um,
Saving us.
lucrative in a sense.
Okay.
So they are forcing us to spend, spend, spend. And to help us to perpetuate that spending, they give us um, easy credit, which
So then, if we're talking about morals, is
Mhm.
that moral?
No,
Because I could see if truly the issue was,
but it's
because
subjective.
if no if the no
Again,
because
it goes back to the eye of the beholder.
not fully, not fully, because if money was truly meant to circulate, then what that would mean is, in a closed pond, if one area held more water than others, it
Mhm,
would it would suffocate the system. In society, that's what we look at, right?
mhm.
That's how we view things. But
Okay.
in reality, the people who are earning more money, they're not. Well, I'll put it this way: the people that we see on Forbes that are earning more money are not the ones who are actually sucking money out of the economy. That's happening from forces that are
Mhm.
not viewable,
Well,
and
so
and those guys aren't paying taxes on anything anyway.
as I mean, because we've hit on a lot of things, and the question that I sit here, I ask myself is, what's the solution?
That's dangerous, Hank.
What the solution is dangerous, or the question?
The solution is dangerous. Yeah, the solution is dangerous
Why? Help me to understand why. Why is this? Because it will force people to be accountable.
I mean, the solution is dangerous because I'll say this.
Is it dangerous to give
Social,
someone I'm $15 an hour? Is it dangerous to
that's not
have
the
roads
solution.
and bridges?
That's not the solution.
Oh,
It,
I'm saying,
that's a,
you're
those
saying,
are
I'm trying to say the danger. What's the danger?
What's the danger in the solution? Anarchy.
In the solution, what's the danger?
Anarchy is the danger.
Well, you don't think it's archaic now?
Nope.
You don't think so?
Nope.
I read something last week that says that gun sales for people of color is on the rise.
Hmm.
I noticed people of now. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think the headline is out there, or why do I
No,
think that
no. Why
the
do you
actual
think
person?
people of color are going out and buying more pieces or buying a piece? Period.
Because the media is showing more of the ugly truth of prejudice and racism,
So
and
the
people are
question,
watching that.
a question is, do you want to be stopped with or without? Don't answer that.
If if one believes that something good or bad will happen, it wouldn't matter
Mhm.
if you had the peace or not.
Yeah, but and I know that there are a whole bunch of people who thought they were doing the right thing and ended up on the wrong side of the law.
That's correct. Here's what I'm saying about anarchy. The unfairness is comes from something or something or someone that is not visible.
Excuse me?
Hmm.
Excuse
One
me?
1,000%. That's the
But
God given truth.
here's the thing. It is so invisible that I see it every day. What's that
You
expression? You know, what
symptoms.
what you know,
Smell something you can't
what
breathe,
what
right?
what you do speaks so loudly that I can't hear what you say.
Hmm. Raising the minimum wage is not going to solve the problem. That's
What's
all.
going
That's all I can say.
and again, that's the point that I make is I know that there's a cause and effect, that there will be some ills or what have you. But
Massive.
if we were to take it step by step, I ask you a question and you give me a yes or no answer.
Okay,
Is that fair?
let's do it.
Okay. Do you think the roads and bridges of America are in disrepair?
No,
Do you think the schools are adequate?
no.
Do you think we should have clean air and water?
Yes.
Do you think the investment in clean energy is important?
Yes.
Do you think electric vehicles are a thing of the future? Do you think autonomous drive vehicles is a smart investment?
Yes. So yeah.
Do you think the drinking water system needs to be protected or upgraded?
Yes.
Do you believe that the rail system is inadequate? The international, no, the national rail system is inadequate or could be upgraded, should be upgraded.
Mm, that one I don't know. I mean, I would think it can be updated if
Do
I
you,
don't know.
well, let's put it this way. Do you think high-speed rail would be beneficial to the US?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Do you think that local public transit systems should be improved?
Yes, especially Indianapolis.
Do you think it's important to have broadband to the hinterlands of America?
I'm gonna say yeah. Yep.
Do you think that public housing, government housing, should be modernized?
I don't understand that.
Public housing today is over 60 years old. Some have no air conditioning, some have deteriorating walls and things of that sort. Do you think it should be updated? They've got
In
lead paint.
public housing?
We're
In
talking about
housing?
government. Yeah,
In
we talking
government
that's it.
housing?
It's yeah.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Do
I didn't
well,
know
put it
that.
this way. Do you think the people who live in public housing
Hmm.
deserve a higher quality of house?
Yeah, if it's higher than what you're speaking, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you think our airports should be improved? Not just in Indianapolis and California. I mean,
Can't say.
do you think that city streets should have a bike lane?
Mm. I can't say on that one. It's dangerous, man.
Do you think that old oil wells and old coal mines should be capped, sealed?
Coal, yes.
Do
Yes.
you think everybody deserves quality education?
Everyone deserves quality education.
Okay. You know what you have just agreed to?
What, the new bill?
The $2 billion, you said no to one thing and you don't know to a couple.
Yeah.
So I went through the plan. I didn't give you how much. Okay. So and what I would like to be able to do, which is not possible, is the people who say no to any of this is to flip the switch and put them in the place of into the position of the people who currently have the plight.
Hey, I'm there's nothing wrong with upgrading, right? Updating things.
Mhm.
But my thing is on the minimum wage. If you increase the minimum wage, you're going to have businesses that are going to look for jobs overseas.
Okay, let me ask you this question. If I have, because see, there are people who will say that you don't need good schools, you don't need good housing, you don't need good water, you don't need good air, you don't need all these other things. You don't need good health care.
You don't need internet.
Okay. But that's where I am at $7.35 an hour. I don't have those things.
But it will, Hank, it's going to cost so much just to do less than that.
But the thing is this, it's going to cost more to do nothing.
That's the thing.
And see,
right?
and unfortunately, I think, Leland, I think too many people look at the price tag right now and think it all needs to be done right now. This is a multi-year plan. Okay.
Hey,
there will be less homes sold if everybody had to pay cash. There will be less cars sold if everybody had to pay cash.
Correct.
So there's a plan. So the question is, which of these should happen first?
So from an economic standpoint, increasing the minimum, are you telling me that by them increasing the minimum wage will allow them to tax people more to have more income supposedly to pay for these things?
Okay, let's do it this way. If companies paid their fair share.
But Hank, there's no shortage of money. It's being printed.
No, that's not the issue. If companies paid their fair share, okay, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
I disagree.
I say again, if we had better schools and better roads and better bridges, and we had all these other things that as a society, the government says that it's going to be responsible for, then I would say yes. Because you wouldn't need as much if you had a quality education, you could get to your job, you could do a whole bunch of other, you wouldn't need as much. But I say that you need to be able to live a decent life.
This is good. We're gonna have to stop it here today. This is good. I think we should do this again, if not tomorrow.
I'm available tomorrow because this is an emotional thing. And the only thing I want people to do is to say, hey, if you're saying no to all of these things, then you need to take a walk back in time and ask yourself, why not?
Good stuff. All right, we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys very soon.
And thanks for your comments, people. You know, I'm trying to read them as I go along.
All right.